What was I come?
Έρχομαι.
Έρχομαι. And I need, do you remember? It started
Χρειάζομαι.
χρειάζομαι. I imagine, like a fantasy.
Φαντάζομαι.
Φαντάζομαι. So these verbs behave in a slightly different way, no? With ome, esse, etc. And now that we are so far into our investigation of Greek and of language, you're already aware of all of the things that you need to find out in order to use these verbs, no? I mean, the closed form, the pasts, how to give the order, etc., etc., etc. And that's not daunting. It actually just means we now understand how to break down language. And if you want to learn any other language, you have a great idea now, right from the outset, of what you're looking for. So we get to recap all of the things we can do with verbs with this new type of verb. So let's find the closed form. Let's find the closed forms of these verbs. What was you speak? You speak informally.
Μιλάς.
Milás. And you will speak?
Θα μιλήσεις.
Θα μιλήσεις. So just as with these verbs that have their accent on the end, we go back to normal endings when we're in the closed form. No, we go from milas to θα μιλήσεις. We use is, the normal ending for you. Also, with these ame, esse verbs, we will just use normal endings when we go into our closed form. So rather than ame, o. Rather than esse, is. But of course, we need to find that closed form. So for those verbs not using ome, no, using ame, for example, and having their accents on the ending as well, like in θυμάμαι, I remember, like in κοιμάμαι, I sleep. For this type of verb, which is especially common, to get the closed form of these, we add if, and then we add our ending, which we accent. So θυμάμαι in its closed form becomes θυμηθώ. Θυμηθώ. We lose ame, our ending, we add if, and then we add our ending for I, and we accent that. Θυμηθώ.
Θυμηθώ.
So how would you say you must remember?
Πρέπει να θυμηθείς.
Πρέπει να θυμηθείς. What was I sleep related to cemetery?
Κοιμάμαι.
Κοιμάμαι. So if we want to find the closed form of κοιμάμαι, what's the first thing we do?
The ame gets dropped.
Good. We lose the ame and we're left with kim. No? Then what do we add?
If.
Is. And then?
That's the ending.
So if you want to say, I sleep in the closed form,
Κοιμηθώ.
κοιμηθώ. And we accent that ending as well. Κοιμηθώ. I will sleep.
Θα κοιμηθώ.
Θα κοιμηθώ. Will you sleep now?
Θα κοιμηθείς τώρα.
Θα κοιμηθείς τώρα? I saw him sleeping. I saw him sleeping. So this isn't I saw him whilst I was sleeping. So we don't look for ing. No, we don't use this ing in Greek as much as we do in English. So when we have a sentence like this, I saw him sleeping, and we mean he was sleeping, we connect these ideas with na. I saw him, na, he sleeps.
Τον είδα να κοιμάται.
Very good. Τον είδα να κοιμάται. He will sleep.
Θα κοιμηθεί.
Θα κοιμηθεί. Θεωρώ was I consider.
Θεωρώ.
We consider.
Θεωρούμε.
Θεωρούμε. And I am considered. I'm considered.
Θεωράμε.
It's actually the same as the we form of θεωρώ.
Θεωρούμε.
Θεωρούμε. So, you know, ome is our standard ending for I with this type of verb, but then we can have other endings that are accented. Θεωρούμε. We've seen ame, we've seen ume. How would you say I will be considered? So what's the first thing you do to θεωρούμε?
Drop the ume and then add is.
Good. So I will be considered?
Θα θεωρηθώ.
Very good. Θα θεωρηθώ. A lot of no? Θα θεωρηθώ. Good. So this isn't like to be considered for a job or something. This is to be considered as, thought of as something. So you could say something like, you know, I will be considered dishonest if I do that, you know. Dishonest, we have anendimos. Anendimos.
Ανέντιμος.
So again, anendimos, that's spelled with a T. We have NT there. giving us an ND or D sound, anendimos, anedimos. So it's important to realize that the T, if we want to break the word up, we saw before timi, the word for price or honor, as in protimo, I prefer, I first honor. So anendimos, we have endimos, which means honorable, and then anendimos, that an gives us like this, dishonorable, dishonest, anendimos. So you could say something like, I will be considered dishonorable, dishonest, if I do that. So I will be considered
Θα θεωρηθώ
dishonorable.
ανέντιμος.
Θα θεωρηθώ anendimos or anendimi for female if I do that or if I do this, probably be most common in Greek.
Αν θα έκανα αυτό.
That means if I would do that, which you don't really need to say.
Αν κάνω αυτό.
Αν κάνω αυτό, good. Θα θεωρηθώ anendimos αν κάνω αυτό. And you might also hear that information of αυτό repeated. Αν το κάνω αυτό. Θα θεωρηθώ anendimos αν το κάνω αυτό. So with this type of verb, this ome verb, and when we don't use ome, we use a different ending which takes the accent. The closed form is really easy to find. We just add ith, no? Θυμάμαι, θυμηθώ. Κοιμάμαι, κοιμηθώ. Θεωρούμε, θεωρηθώ. What was I walk?
Περπατάω.
Περπατάω. And the closed version of περπατάω?
Περπατήσω.
Περπατήσω. So actually we see something in common between περπατάω and περπατήσω and κοιμάμαι and κοιμηθώ, for example. With those verbs, those normal verbs with their accent on the ending, like περπατάω, no, to get the closed form, we add is, περπατήσω. And in the same way, when we have ame, for example, carrying the accent, we go to ith. So just like it was very easy to find the closed form with those verbs with their accent on the end, μιλάω, μιλήσω, αγαπάω, αγαπήσω, ρωτάω, ρωτήσω. The same goes with the second family of verbs we're seeing, they use ith when they have their accents on the end. Κοιμάμαι, κοιμηθώ. Θεωρούμε, θεωρηθώ. But with those verbs that don't have their accent on the end, so those that use ame, se, ete, finding the closed form is a little more complicated. So for example, we have I get lost, χάνομαι, and then the closed form is χαθώ.
Χαθώ.
How would you say we won't get lost?
Δεν θα χάσουμε.
Good, but like in χαθώ, no, we will accent the ending. So then θα χαθούμε. We have σκέφτομαι, I think, like skeptical, and then the closed version is σκεφτώ.
Σκεφτώ.
How would you say I will think about it or just I will think it?
Θα το σκεφτώ.
Θα το σκεφτώ. I need was χρειάζομαι.
Χρειάζομαι.
How is you need?
Χρειάζεσαι.
Χρειάζεσαι. The closed version of χρειάζομαι is χρειαστώ. Χρειαστώ.
Χρειαστώ.
So how would you say when will you need it? When will you need it?
Πότε θα το χρειαστείς?
Very good. Πότε θα το χρειαστείς? How would you say for how long will you need it? So for how long, you could say for how much, and it can be understood that you mean time, or you can say for how much time. So the word for how was
Πώς?
πώς, and how much is πόσο. So for how much time, for how long will you need it?
Για πόσο θα το χρειαστείς?
Για πόσο θα το χρειαστείς, or για πόσο καιρό θα το χρειαστείς. Καιρός, by the way, also means weather, other than time, also weather. Like tiempo in Spanish, no? Which is time and weather. How would you say, how is the weather there? How is the weather there?
Πώς είναι ο καιρός εκεί?
Good. Πώς είναι ο καιρός εκεί? How is the weather there? So as we see in χάνομαι, χαθώ, σκέφτομαι, σκεφτώ, χρειάζομαι, χρειαστώ, getting the closed version of these verbs is a little more complicated than with our verbs which accent the endings, no, and just use if. But we will find many patterns, as we did with our standard verbs before, in order to find our closed version. We notice that we always have a T or a TH, no? Χαθώ, σκεφτώ, chriasto. And we also see that we can have another sound change to the consonant before that th or that t. It can completely disappear, like the n does in chanome. When we get chaso, that n completely disappears. We can see a letter change, like in chriazome and chriasto. That z in chriazome changes to an s when we add our t, chriasto. And we can also think that we are always adding th, but th might interact with the previous sound in a number of ways, either deleting it, changing it, or the th itself changing to a t.